To make the base today, I'm going to be using two things. I'm going to be using things from the Desert and Arid Waste kit from Games Master that's done by the Army Painter, and also the Dungeons and Caverns core set. And the first thing I'm going to do is take some of the styrofoam in the core set, take the model that I want to make the base for. In this case it's Cal Kestis from the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order game, and I'm going to use these. These are the hot cutters, again from Army Painter, and a link will be in the description if you want to buy some. And I'm going to use these to cut around the styrofoam to take away the uniformity of it. I don't want it to look square. I want it to look like it's made of sand, so I want it to look curved. Now this hot cutter is absolutely amazing. It takes two batteries, you squeeze the connector in, and once you've done that, the whole thing will just cut through this stuff like a knife through butter. It's really a great bit of kit. Now once I've cut around that, I want to just take away the sharp 90-degree edge, so I'm going to do exactly the same again with the cutter, and I'm just going to randomly cut the corner off, cut the edge away until I'm left with what can be described, I guess, as an ununiformed figure, as something that's completely random, something that will look like a really good base when we get it all painted up and all the 90-degree angles have gone. And there we go, that's what we're left with. Now don't worry about that marking it. That marking it is where Cal Kestis' foot actually will go, and I'm going to cut that little bit out so his foot fits in it. I want to make a little boulder outlay on the edge, so this is what I'm going to use. Two pieces of that, I'm going to layer them on top of each other, and that's what I'm going to use for the base of the boulder. Now I'm going to glue them together with some styrofoam friendly super glue. If you use some basic super glue that's not styrofoam friendly, you risk just melting it away. So once I've got them stuck together in the position that I want, I'm just going to use a couple of toothpicks and I'm going to squeeze them through until they are in, and that's going to hold it absolutely firm, and I'll use some snippers just to take the top off. Now you could use hot glue of course as well, but I'm using some super glue and some toothpicks, and there we go, that's what the corner will look like. Now this stuff is amazing. This is Tesco's all-purpose filler. Lots of different brands are available, but I'm sure you can find some where you live, and this only cost me just over £2 to buy this. What a great bargain. And when you open the lid you can see that it's kind of liquidy, but it's not powder, it's more of a paste, and all you do is you take your handful of it, make sure you wear some gloves because this could get messy, and smear it across your model in all the areas that you need. Now you don't need shed loads of it, you just need to have a layer of it across the top, and the thicker you make it the longer it will take to dry. But I really do enjoy using this stuff on bases. It just dries quickly, it's mouldable, and where you can see the hill outcrop there, you can just fill it in and you can mould it around, and you can turn those spurious pieces there into a lovely little rock outcrop, as you can see there, and I'm just using my finger to flatten it down. Once I've got that down and before it dries, I'm taking some of the scenery sand here, which is included in the Army Painter sets, in both of the sets actually, and I'm just going to sprinkle it across the top of the wet paste. If this was dry you could use the glue that's provided, but I prefer to just do it while it's wet, put it on there, and then I'll pop my glove back on and I will use that glove to push it down. And make sure you get all the areas that you want, and as I say, glove back on and push it down. And that's the basis of the base complete. Wasn't really rocket science, relatively easy, looks pretty darn good. Now for the painting stage I'm using some of this Desert and Arid paint which comes in the Arid and Desert kit, and it's great sort of base layer. I want it to be a sandy effect, and this is really good for that. It doesn't melt your styrofoam as well, it's quite friendly to it. Some paints would, as like the super glue, melt it down, but this paint doesn't, so I highly recommend you get yourself some of these paints. And once it's on there and it's had a little bit of a chance to dry, this is what it looks like. So I'm going to do the rocks first, and I'm going to use some grey primer and some demonic yellow, and I'm simply going to splodge the grey on, followed by some splodges of the yellow paint, and I'm going to take a nice big fat brush and just smear it across the rocks. Now obviously black and white would give you grey if you needed it, if you didn't have some primer colour, but I think this primer colour is absolutely great for the rocks. Don't overdo the yellow, you don't want to turn it completely yellow, you just want to give it a hint and just smear it across. I've added a tiny bit more grey because I thought it was a little bit too yellow, and I'm just going to put this grey across and I'll just give it a different layer, a different level of colour really. And that's what it looks like. That's the base layer for your rock, ready to do some more layers on it to bring it to life. Now I'm using Desert Base, which is the first colour I'm going to do across the sand, and a dry brush technique on a big makeup brush, and I'm just going to use that technique to put it in certain areas. I don't want to put it across the whole thing, and I'm certainly just going to put it across the very, very top edge, so I'm going to use most of the paint is going to be off the brush, and that dry brush technique just to highlight the top edges of the sand. Waste wash is the next thing I'm going to put on there, and again I'm not going to put it all over, but this wash is absolutely fantastic. Once this wash goes on, realistically from a sand effect you could probably leave it at that. I'm going to do a bit more work on it, but once the wash goes on I think it's a brilliant effect, and absolutely love the wash. Now if you do like what you see today, don't forget to subscribe to Greedy 3D. We do have a Patreon scheme whereby you can join our private Discord, you can submit some work, and we'll have some artists of the moment displays on one of my videos. And if you want to look into that, all the information that you need is in the description. I really would appreciate it if you could help me out with being on the Patreon. It allows me to continue to do stuff like this. Make sure you comment as well on what you can see today. I want to know if you like it, if you don't like it, would you do anything different? What do you think of the end result? And there's the base layer, a quick dry brush and the wash, and that's it. Not quite finished, but you could get away with that. Now I'm going to use some desert highlights next, and I'm just going to use that dry brush again, and I'm really lightly coating across the top of the sand in certain areas, not across the whole thing. I just want to add another level of visual effect to it really, and just look at that sand effect. It's really lovely and so easy to make. Dark tone next for the rocks, and I want to darken them up a little bit, so I'm using this Army Painter wash just to give them a dark layer, and the wash will sit in the crevices and the nooks of the rock, and I'm going to concentrate mostly when I put this wash on the edges and the inner bits, and I'm going to let it gather in the little places where it should gather and rub it off the top, and that will darken it up wonderfully. And there we go. Look at that effect on the rocks just with a wash. Amazing. Really pleased with that. We need to bring those to life a little bit, and we'll do that in a bit. So I'm going to use some desert effects now. This is another dry brush. It's the lighter colour of all of them that are in the desert and arid set. And I'm just going to go around the edges of the base a little bit with this just to highlight it a little bit. You don't need to do that, but I just like to give it a little bit of life around the edge. And once I've done that, I'm going to go over some of the high stones, some of the little sandy bits in white, and that's going to be the base layer pretty much done on the sand. And this is a brilliant colour as well to put over the rocks. I'm going to do this layer over the rocks first, and this will just bring them to life. It'll make them look like they've been battered and aged and chipped on the top, and these just great. Dry brushing rocks on top of grey, it just brings them absolutely to life. Final layer on the rocks is some lawful white, and again just on the outer edges, the most prominent parts really, just to add that final layer to the rocks. And some little mimicky rocks there, some little pretend styrofoam rocks which I'm going to glue in, and you can see I've just found an old stormtrooper head as well that I've battered up a little bit, and I'm going to stick that on the base, and it is pretty much done and dusted. Once I put the grass on, these little sort of sandy grass knolls, again in the arid kit, I'm going to pop them around for the final effect, and you'll, well, just love it, absolutely love it. And that's the base done. So let's have a look at it all finished. Don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to join the Patreon, let's have your comments, and I'll see you next time on Greedy 3D.